Okay, so as we go through this, I believe that there's been a new paradigm shift in housing. I feel very passionate about this. And the paradigm shift is what used to be, or what is occasionally now, is the idea that you want to buy because it's the American dream. Well, I'm here to tell you that I believe that that's true, but there's a lot of people out there that it is not the American dream. In fact, for millennials, my belief is that if I tell a millennial they need to buy a home because it's the American dream, I think that they'll probably give me a hand signal that's not very nice. And I agree with them. And the reason is that when the subprime crisis happened, they were either children that watched their parents lose their house, or they had just graduated from high school, or were just in the throes of college, but they were very early in through the process. And as children or young adults, they saw what happened in the subprime crisis. And so when you talk about this idea of owning a home because it's the American dream, there's a lot of people that don't buy into that anymore. That was a marketing campaign that came out in 1932 in an effort to sell more homes. And it worked. It's been very successful. And I agree with that. I have no issues with it. I just don't think that it connects with people the way that it could. And so what we did is we do a lot of research, and we decided that in addition to the American dream, which is home ownership, we want to support that. We also believe that the new paradigm shift includes the first one on your screen here, which is called transforming lives through home ownership. And transforming lives through home ownership means that your life is different as a result of buying a home and going from renting to buying. Or it even can be for people who own a home but need to get into a better home that fits their occasion and their environment and their needs. Tonight, we're focusing on going from renting to buying as a first-time home buyer. And so when we talk about transforming lives through home ownership, you know, there's studies done that we've done that showed that 50% of you're 50% less likely to get divorced when you own a home. Your children do better in school. In fact, there was a study done that told us that showed that children have less incidences of asthma as a result of owning versus renting. It's also interesting to note that right now, the average net worth, or not the average, but the median net worth of a renter in the United States today is $5,000. The median net worth of a homeowner is $230,000. So it's a 46 times difference between those who rent and those who buy in net median wealth that they have in their home, you know, that they own. And median net wealth is your asset minus your liabilities and what's ever left from your with your assets. And so it's a huge difference. And the thing that's so interesting about it is that our studies show that even though the home payment initially for owning your home is higher than that of renting, at least in some cases, people who own home tend to save more money, even though they make the same income as somebody who rents. It's also interesting to note that 33% of individuals who rent can buy, and most of them don't know it. Now think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. 33%, that's a big number of people who think that they can't buy. And a lot of it comes from the issues that came from the subprime crisis, where people had this myth that they couldn't buy a home based on what happened or what they saw. There was nobody that was not affected during the subprime crisis. There were basically 10 million homes that were foreclosed upon, and that equates to about 35 million individuals in the United States. And at the time period, that was about 10% of the population. And so the ripple effects that happened was massive. And as a result of that, there was a survey done by Fannie Mae not too many years ago that showed that 45%, listen to this very carefully, this is really important, 45% of individuals thought that they needed to have 20% down. In other words, 45% of those who rented believed that they had to have 20% down. Well, if they're going to buy a $300,000 home, or let's say $400,000 home, and they got to have 20% down, that means they have to have $80,000. Well, if I was a first-time home buyer and I had to have $80,000 to buy a home, I would not look any more at home ownership whatsoever. There's no way. I mean, $80,000 cuts out the case. I'm not interested. There's no way I can afford that. Well, the real truth is you need 3%. So now I need $12,000. Well, there's a big difference between $12,000 and $80,000. It just so happens that I can scratch and I can beg and I do whatever I need to do to make sure that I get 12 grand. I can make it happen. And so there's all of these myths that go around buying a home, especially for those individuals that are currently renting, that think that they're out of the market. Even in today's market, with prices going high, there's still a wonderful opportunity to buy, and a lot of people don't know that. So the first aspect is transforming lives through home ownership, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The next phase in the paradigm shift is the drive to buy. Now, this one I feel very passionate about. We also did some studies on this. And what we found out is that there's a lot of inaccuracies there on what you read about what is the affordability. So like, for instance, let's take California. In California, especially in Southern California, they came out with a survey, and basically they said, well, home affordability, only 22% of the population in California can afford to buy a home. Now, when I hear that, I just cringe at that. But when other people hear that, they're going, oh, okay, that puts me out of the running. I'm not in that 22%. Well, the drive to buy is really interesting, because when somebody decides to buy a home and it kicks in and they commit to it, all of a sudden they ask for raises, they get higher paying jobs, they reduce their debt, they improve their credit. I mean, as soon as they get that information and they get it into their head that they can buy, all of a sudden they get this drive to buy. I mean, when someone tells you only 22% of Californians can buy a home, that's like telling somebody they got 5 weeks to live because they have cancer. It's totally wrong. It's inaccurate. It's not true. Because all of a sudden, when you decide that you want to buy, you get a co-bar, you'll get down payment gift funds, you'll do whatever you can. And we have seen it again and again and again. And Gina and I have gone through this all the time. People call in. The first thing they say is, I know we can't qualify to buy, but here's what we have. We're out Sunday seeing at open houses, and we saw a house we liked. In fact, Gina and I, we had an open house seminar that we did where people could come in to get qualified to buy on the spot, right? Get a pre-approval right on the spot. And Doug and Cindy came in, they sat down and they said, we don't even know why we're here. We know that we can't qualify to buy a home because we were turned down by a major lender. And we went through it, and in 20 minutes, we had them set up to buy a home for $675,000. It happens all the time because they get inaccurate information. And within 60 days, they were in their new dream home. So this drive to buy, once people get it in their heads that they can buy, it transforms their lives. And we talk to our buyers all the time. They've been renting for a long period of time. One individual, he said, when I walked in the house, the first time it was my house, I looked at the walls and said, now these walls are my walls. And if I were to ask you a couple of questions, in fact, let me just ask a couple of questions since we have a little bit more intimate setting tonight. Why do you think there's such a big transformation when it comes from renting to buying, that comes from owning? I mean, you may not know because you're renting, but what are the things about renting that you can see are things that may be holding you back, or that you're not quite comfortable with? Does anybody want to bring that up? Mary Cole or Jody, do you want to say something?
Well, I'm naturally a creative person. And so, there's so many thoughts and ideas and visions that I have. And I like to plan events. And so I feel like now with renting, I have to just jot it down in a journal so I can go back to it when I do become a homeowner. So I
Mhm.
feel like it's limiting my creative ability by renting, because I don't want to relax and set up and then, someone has the ability to tell me to take it off the wall or change it or don't do that. So
Right.
that's what I'm looking forward to be able to relax and be able to create and entertain.
Wow, that's great.
Mhm.
Very cool. That's a very powerful reason. That really kicks the drive to buy in quite a bit, I would say, Miracle. That's wonderful.
Right.
Okay, good. Thank you. Jody, have you got a thought on that?
Well, it seems as though renting, you would kind of be at the mercy of someone else and just not yourself, under someone else's control.
Mhm.
And you could like lose it at any time.
That's a really good point. It's really disheartening. In fact, Gina and I have a mutual friend, a very good friend, where they've been in their rental for 4 or 5 years. They can buy, but they've just decided not to. And then she got a notice. She said, "You got to be out within 60 days. You're out." And they had to go through. And I mean, it was just a feeling of saying, we're not as secure as we think we are. And I think that both of those comments are great comments, really good comments. Marie, do you have anything to say on that? Maria?
Yes. Also, well, as you know, I'm a realtor, right? And what I tell my clients and people that I talk about is that having a home or owning a home it means that you are creating wealth, and not only for yourself, because this is something that you may leave as a legacy to your children. So it's also a multi-generational wealth creation.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, good. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. All right. Then, thank you. Those are great comments. Then we go to home ownership as a sacred trust. Now, this is really important to me because it's when I say sacred trust, I'm not necessarily saying it in a religious context. It's in the context of saying homeownership is something that's sacred, that if you take care of your home, it will take care of you. And home ownership is when your children may take their first steps, when your teenage son or daughter goes out to the prom date for their first time. There's all of these things that happen in your home. And a lot of times I find that before I really teach clients this principle, they don't really get it. But as soon as they realize that homeownership is something sacred, you tend to want to pay off your home. You tend not to want to take out big loans against it. You tend to want to keep it up. And you want to make it so that it's something, as Maria said, that can be passed down to your generations and to your children as well.